Hi, my name is İdil Zeynep Dağdemir. I am CDP Turkey Projects Manager. Today I will be presenting the CDP 21 Turkey results. So these are the data that are announced by the companies. I will show some sections of this analysis. In order to reach the full report, you can use this website, cdpturkey.com. In Turkey, the number of companies that respond to CDP climate change program was 41 one year before. Now it's 67, and 41 of these companies got official invitation from investors. They're registered in the BIST 100 of Borsa Istanbul. And in the last 5 years, there is an increase for the first time. The rest of the companies did a voluntary reporting. The analysis in the report excludes 3 sub-companies, so it is based on the data of 64 companies. The number of companies that responded to CDP water program was 44 in 2021, and 33 of them had official invitation, 11 had voluntary reporting. And in our water program, there were 41 companies that were included in our analysis. When it comes to climate change and water security, in addition to the reports, in 2021, for the first time in Turkey, a company reported within the framework of the CDP forest program. We hope that this will be a priority, and in the coming years, we hope that the impact of deforestation will be seen more by companies in terms of its economic impact. Now, I would like to continue with more detail of the report with regard to climate change. In companies, when it comes to climate issues at the board level, the number of companies that take care of this issue increase every year. In the past year, the rate of the companies was 33%, and now it's 53% in 2021. And as for the companies that reported among the climate change risks, those that have a direct impact on company operations increase every year. In 2021, 97% of the companies had climate change related risks with their company operations. Now, almost all companies focus and are aware of these risks, and they develop certain mechanisms for taking measures. And including this issue in the corporate governance is now a new business normal. You see in this graph, one of the main risks, 77% of the companies talk about regulation-related risks as one of the main risks. So regulations are seen as a main risk. This was 65% the year before. So there's an increase from 65% to 77%. And up until the ratification of Paris Agreement, there was this ambiguous policy of the government regarding climate. So that could be one explanation. But then the ratification of the Paris Agreement shows that this ambiguity will be left behind when it comes to policies. And in transition to low carbon economy, there are certain opportunities that are defined. These are as important as the risks themselves. In 2020, 89% of the companies defined those opportunities, and now it's 91%. So every year, when it comes to climate change policies, the main factor is rather the risks than the opportunities. So when it comes to climate change, companies do not really see the opportunities enough. They're not aware enough, or they cannot make use of the opportunities at a sufficient level. In 2021, one of the there were 18 risk factors that are important for companies, and carbon pricing mechanism is important for 70% of the companies, which was 59% the year before. When we take into account national and international regulations, carbon pricing mechanisms trigger risks. So this is an expected situation, an expected factor. And when it comes to climate change, companies would like to address the issue efficiently. So they have certain measures and adaptations mechanism. They need to implement this, including all areas, especially when it comes to reducing emissions. In order to have meaningful action, value chain emission needs to be included in the reporting process. In 2021, with regard to supply chain, there were more opportunities identified. The year before, 17 of the companies that reported, and in 2021, 33% of the companies reported opportunities with regard to value chain. And most of the reporting companies now identify emission targets. As you see, in 2021, there was at least one emission reduction goal for 91% of the companies. And there are some companies that give detailed information about the emission intensity. It was 11%, and now the rate of these companies is 23%, but this is not enough. In attaining their targets, global companies are moving towards clean energy more and more. As they reduce the emissions, they increase their energy efficiency at the same time and reduce their energy use. In Turkey, the companies that report to CDP, only 9% of them focus on energy consumption or efficiency in their targets. And in 2021, this was 11%. And in terms of transition to renewable energy from conventional energy, is the top company strategy, should be the top company strategy today. But in Turkey, the companies that aim at reducing fossil fuel is almost non-existent. CDP is inviting investors, companies, cities to measure, because you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So it encourages managing the environmental impact and encourages to build a sustainable economy. There is the scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. Their measurement and reporting is very important. Companies need to identify the situation and develop more conscious targets. This is of vital importance. In 2021, all the sectors that reported, 97% of all those companies were in scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. They reported scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. You see this graph here. In their CDP reporting, from the first moment onwards, companies have their scope 1 and scope 2 reporting. They would like to sustain this reporting. At the same time, this year, 92% of the companies reported scope 3 emissions as well. This was an important development. As for the science-based targets, this is about the greenhouse emissions and its rate of reduction. This needs to be analyzed based on scientific data. And in 2021, only 41% of companies for the next 2 years have a target of science-based targets. That's what they reported. And in 2021, in 2020, this was lower, but it's still low. And in the next 2 years, when it comes to science-based targets, the number of companies that do not plan this is decreasing every year. In 2020, this was 19%. Now it's down to 11%. So this gives hope. I would like to talk about the CDP water program and the analysis of the data there. As we all know, water security is very important. It has an influence of company operations and vice versa. The strategic decisions of a board can change the impact of a company on water resources radically. In 2021, almost all of the companies that reported said that the water issues are addressed at the board level. As for the responding companies, more than 50% of them addressed the issue at the CEO level. In terms of water security, the number one strategy is reducing water use. In Turkey, CVP water program responding companies, 41% of them say that they have a lower water consumption, and 17% reported a higher consumption. 49% of the responding companies said that compared to last year, they withdraw less water from underground water resources. 29 companies said that they withdraw more water compared to previous year. As for the security of the underground resources, this is important. And we see that the reporting companies increased more, and 66% withdraw water from areas where water is scarce. This is really important. You see the water withdrawal and discharge destinations on this graph, 76% of the withdrawn water is supplied from third parties, and 78% of the water is discharged from the third party land. So unfortunately, companies have negative activities outside the borders of their facilities. And 98% of the reporting companies in Turkey say that they report risk assessment with regard to water, but only 27% of the companies report that water has a negative impact on their operations. This is a low figure, and this indicates that in risk assessment, companies do not address water security in all aspects. As for the reported risk factors and their potential impact, in direct operations, the most reported risk factors are floods and the increasing water stress. And in the value chain, the most reported risk factors are drought and excessive climate conditions. As for the potential impact of the risks in direct operations, the most reported potential impact is by 34%, increasing operational costs. And in the value chain, at the top level, the potential impact is the reducing sales or revenue losses due to loss of products. The previous slide was about the factors that trigger risks. Here are the types of risks. There are physical risks, like last year in 2021 as well. They had 68% impact on direct operations and 49% in the value chain. So it's the most reported type of risk. 93% of the companies have a target with regard to water. As for its details, we see that the targets are not really ambitious enough. In 2021, only 5% of the companies have this habitat restoration or ecosystem preservation targets. And in the reporting process, value chain needs to be included. This is very important, and we underline that at every single opportunity. 61% of the responding companies from Turkey talk about the water use. They ask for suppliers to report about their water use. There is an increase in the graph. So in terms of the integration of value chain, we see that the companies are getting more and more conscious. Before I conclude my words, I'd like to talk about the CDP grading methodology and the score distribution briefly. In the CDP methodology, the companies are rated from D to A in terms of transparency, awareness, management, and leadership. And in the climate and water program, some companies get A and B score. They have the leadership and management level. In 2020, it was 36%. In 2021, it's 50 companies. Sorry, it was 36 and now it's 50 companies. There is a stable increase there every single year. In the last reporting cycle, in the climate change, the companies with B score increased by 100% compared to previous year. This is noticeable. And when we examined that, the companies that got the B score, most of them were actually at a higher score in the previous year. And in the performance assessment, we see there is a more strict procedure. And over the years, companies gain experience. And in line with this experience, they don't want to lose their position. So they should have more ambitious targets in order to achieve this. And there is the A and AX scores. There are companies that are at the leadership level. We're going to announce their names as our conference continues. Thank you very much for your attention.